Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 1071 chapter. The flames of war had finally died down. After the armies withdrew and the dust of battle settled, the imperial capital once again stood tall beneath the vast heavens, unchanged on the surface, yet filled with unseen currents beneath. And it was precisely at this moment that Zhao Lun made his move. Without hesitation, he strode into the Ministry of War and submitted a formal indictment, his accusation sharp as a drawn blade. Ling Han had defected during wartime. As deputy commander, Zhao Lun's words were not those of an ordinary man. Each sentence carried the weight of authority, and more than that, he was the only son of the great General Zhao. His lineage alone ensured that no official would dare treat his claim lightly. The moment the indictment was delivered, the Ministry of War stirred like a hive struck by a stone. An investigation, vast, urgent, and relentless, was immediately set into motion, and the more they looked, the more suspicious it all seemed. Ling Han's talent? Undeniable. His name had already spread across the empire like wildfire. But talent was one thing, cultivation was another. He stood only at the peak of the medium extreme. Even if his combat strength defied reason, even if he could battle beyond 5 stars, at best, he could rival the early stage of the consummate level. And yet, on that battlefield, there had been countless students of the consummate level, middle stage, late stage, even those at the very peak. All of them captured. Only Ling Han had escaped. Why? That single question echoed like thunder through the halls of the ministry. Then came the testimonies. After the war ended, the captured students were released one by one. Some spoke with certainty, swearing by their lives that they had seen it themselves. Ling Han had been taken away by enemy soldiers, summoned, interrogated, and after that, he had never returned to the prison where the others were held. More voices rose, more witnesses appeared. The net tightened. When Shu Yanyu heard these accusations, her fury erupted like a storm breaking over the sea. Ridiculous, she snapped, her eyes blazing. These are nothing but shameless slanders. Her chest rose and fell as anger surged within her. She knew things others did not. She knew Ling Han's secrets. With the Black Tower in his possession, how could he have been captured so easily? It was absurd. More importantly, it was Ling Han who had uncovered the terrifying conspiracy of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. It was his intelligence that had forced the Empress herself to take action. That alone proved everything. He was not a traitor. He was a pillar of merit. And yet now, Zhao Lun twisted the truth, using his position to avenge a personal grudge, weaving lies with others to frame Ling Han. Despicable. Utterly despicable. But as she burned with anger, Ling Han only laughed. A soft, amused laugh, as though he were watching a farce unfold. I took something he cherished, he said lightly. So now he claws back at me in whatever way he can. His eyes gleamed faintly. The more shameless he becomes, the more it shows how deeply he's been wounded. Shu Yanyu stared at him, disbelief written plainly across her face. You're not worried at all? Her voice carried urgency now. Zhao Lun was not merely accusing. He was shaping the narrative, gathering support, spreading rumors throughout the capital. Once the masses believed Ling Han was a traitor, truth would no longer matter. And if that day came, would her clan still agree to let her marry him? Ling Han only smiled. If worry could solve anything, he replied calmly, then perhaps I would. He paused, his tone almost playful. But who told me to stand alone, without backing? Shu Yanyu's eyes lit up immediately. You can seek help from the 9th king. But Ling Han shook his head. He knew better. Empress Luanxing had already shown her displeasure toward his connection with Hu Feiyun. If he went to the 9th king now, it might provoke consequences far worse than Zhao Lun's schemes. No, he said quietly. Zhao Lun is nothing more than a clown dancing on stage. He leaned back slightly, gaze steady. As long as one person speaks, all of this noise will vanish like smoke. Shu Yanyu blinked. Then realization struck. Her Imperial Majesty? Ling Han chuckled. My wife is indeed perceptive. If the Empress spoke, everything would end instantly. Her authority was absolute. But therein lay the problem. Ling Han was merely a 9th-ranked military officer. To the Empire, he was insignificant. How could such a trivial matter ever reach the ears of the Empress? She carried the weight of the entire empire on her shoulders. Without her, the chaotic star's majestic empire would have long since fallen beneath its rivals. How could she possibly concern herself with something so small? Yet Ling Han's smile deepened. Shui Yanyu did not understand. She had never wielded the power of a nation. If the Empress wished, nothing within the empire could escape her notice, especially the imperial capital. This place, the heart of power, every movement, every whisper, lay beneath her unseen gaze. Ling Han had exposed a grand conspiracy, and yet he had received no reward. That silence itself was the answer. The Empress was watching and waiting. Perhaps she intended to use this moment to discipline her empire, to remind those who thought themselves untouchable not to cross certain lines. Ling Han understood, because he too was an emperor, though his realm was far smaller. Between rulers, words were unnecessary. Meanwhile, the storm only grew stronger. Rumors spread like wildfire across the imperial capital. Ling Han had defected. Ling Han had betrayed the empire. Ling Han would soon be punished. People spoke of it in streets, in taverns, in quiet corners behind closed doors. Some pitied him. Such talent, such a future, why throw it away? But betrayal was a line no one would tolerate. Under this immense pressure, people began distancing themselves from him, one by one, even those who once stood close. Li Weiwei came personally to see him. Her expression was complicated, her voice hesitant. "The left minister has forbidden me from meeting you." She lowered her gaze slightly. "He's placed heavy pressure on me." Though she was rebellious by nature, the command of the left minister was not something she could defy, so she came only to apologize. Ling Han felt a warmth stir within his heart. She was the daughter of the left minister. Her status was lofty beyond measure, yet she still came just to inform him. That alone spoke volumes. She had treated him as a true friend. Time did not pause. The investigation could not drag on forever. 2 days later, the Ministry of War made its decision. A public trial at noon the following day. Because Ling Han held official rank, he could not be punished arbitrarily. Only the Empress held such absolute authority. Thus, the ministry had to conduct a trial to determine whether he was truly guilty of treason. If convicted, they would petition the Empress to strip his rank, and once that protection was gone, his fate would be entirely in their hands. This was the value of status, the shield of authority. There were 2 forms of investigation, a normal one, hidden, silent, unseen, and a public trial, where all eyes could witness the judgment, because the charge was treason. The ministry chose the latter. Whether Zhao Lun had influenced this decision, no one could say. But many believed he wished to see Ling Han condemned before the eyes of all. Even the gambling houses seized the opportunity. Bets were placed. Would Ling Han be acquitted? Would his rank be revoked? Would he be executed? The entire imperial capital buzzed with speculation. There was no other topic. Only one name echoed through the city, Ling Han. Within the residence of Great General Sha, laughter rang out. Sha Yuan leaned back, his expression full of satisfaction. "The trial is tomorrow, isn't it?" he said with a grin. "Het, this time he's finished. With so many witnesses, he'll be nailed to the pillar of shame." His eyes gleamed with malicious delight. What a perfect opportunity. If I don't take part, how could I vent my anger? He turned his head slightly. "Yuan Long." A young man stepped forward at once. "Yes, young master." "Make arrangements," Sha Yuan said calmly. "I'm sure there are more witnesses who can testify to Ling Han's treason." "Yes, young master." The young man withdrew immediately. Sha Yuan's smile turned cold. Ling Han, you refused my goodwill, so now you force me to act." His voice dropped, heavy with killing intent. "Once your rank is stripped, and the charge of treason is confirmed, there will be only one path left for you. Death." He leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing. "And when you are thrown into prison, I will uncover every secret you possess." The candlelight flickered. And in that dim glow, his shadow stretched long across the ground, like something monstrous awakening in the dark. The hour of judgment arrived beneath a sky that seemed to hold its breath. At precisely noon, when the sun stood at its zenith like an unblinking eye of heaven, soldiers of the Ministry of War marched forward with rigid discipline. Their armor clinked like cold iron chimes as they escorted Ling Han into a place where fate itself would be weighed and judged. This was no ordinary courtroom. It resembled a battlefield arena, vast and open, its heart a circular expanse of bare ground. Surrounding it, rings upon rings of rising stone steps climbed higher and higher. like terraces built for watching the fall of heroes. And yet, there were no seats for the crowd, only standing figures, packed tightly, their gazes sharp, eager, or filled with hidden malice. At the highest point stood a towering pedestal. There, 3 figures sat. They alone were granted seats, judges of the Ministry of War, towering in both authority and cultivation. Kong Cheng'e, Gu Tianchu, and Nan Minyang. Each of them stood firmly within the sun-moon tier, their auras heavy and oppressive, like mountains pressing down upon the land. Their mere presence caused the air itself to tremble with invisible pressure. Below them, alone at the center of the arena, stood Ling Han. No chains bound his wrists. No iron shackles weighed upon his ankles, for now he was merely accused, not yet condemned. And until guilt was proven, he remained innocent. Yet the silence surrounding him was far colder than any prison. All around the rising steps stood countless onlookers. Some had come out of curiosity, drawn by the storm of rumors that had surrounded Ling Han throughout the past year. Others came with jealousy burning in their hearts. Still others came with expectation, waiting to witness his fall. Would this be the final act of the man who had shaken the imperial capital? Would this arena become the stage of his end? Among the crowd, familiar faces gathered. Shu Yanyu, Li Weiwei, and Ji Yuner stood together, their expressions tense. Lin Yo, Ma Xing, Ye Chengyun, and others watched with unease. On the opposite side, adversaries gathered, Zhao Lun, Zhu Wuqi, and more, each wearing expressions that ranged from cold amusement to open anticipation. All were waiting for the verdict. Ling Han, do you plead guilty? The voice came like thunder. Gu Chanchu spoke, his tone cold and absolute. As his words echoed, a terrifying force surged forth. An invisible pressure formed from his powerful spirit, rushing straight toward Ling Han's mind like a tidal wave seeking to drown his consciousness. This was no simple question. It was an assault. If it had been any ordinary cultivator, their divine sense would have collapsed under that pressure. Their thoughts would scatter, their will falter, and in that brief moment of weakness, they would reveal the truth hidden in their hearts. Such was the skill of these judges. Their authority was not built on rank alone, but on mastery of spirit. But Ling Han did not even blink. His spirit stood firm like an ancient mountain. Within him lingered the remnants of the demon master's essence, a foundation so profound that even the pressure of a sun-moon tier expert could not shake it. To intimidate him? It was nothing more than a futile attempt. Calmly, without the slightest ripple in his voice, Ling Han replied, I do not know what crime I have committed. The words fell softly, yet struck like iron. Insolence. Kong Cheng's gaze turned sharp as a blade. His voice boomed with fury. In the public court of the Ministry of War, you still dare to speak falsehoods? Confess at once every detail of your collusion with the Golden Lion Nation. Ling Han merely smiled, a faint, almost amused smile. This is something that has never happened, he said evenly. How could I confess to it? Humph. Nan Minyang waved a hand, his expression turning cold. We expected denial. Bring forth the first witness. From the crowd, a figure stepped forward, Zhao Lun. He descended the steps with measured confidence, his posture proud, his expression cold and arrogant. Seeing him, Ling Han shook his head inwardly. So it begins. The son of a great general, yet constantly targeting someone he considered beneath him. Was there no shame in that? With such a narrow heart, how far could he truly go? The Empire praised Zhao Lun as a genius. They spoke of his rapid cultivation, of how he had already surpassed many elites of the heavenly body tier within his age group. They claimed his future was boundless, that he would surely step into the heavenly body tier. But in Ling Han's eyes, Zhao Lun lacked something essential. All the true heavenly body tier elites he had encountered possessed an unshakable will. They were domineering, confident, and fearless. Individuals who stood above others not just in strength, but in spirit. Zhao Lun, however, was petty, small-minded, driven by grudges, eager to avenge even the slightest slight. Such a person could never cross the threshold of true greatness. Yes, his cultivation was advancing quickly, but that was only because his realm was still low. And more importantly, because behind him stood a powerful father, gathering countless treasures to fuel his progress. Without that support, his path would be far slower. Perhaps he might never even reach the sun-moon tier in his lifetime. At that moment, Zhao Lun's eyes met Ling Han's, and he saw it. That faint trace of disdain instantly, fury surged within him like a wildfire. You dare look down on me? You a prisoner. An ant from a small world. A mere cultivator at the medium extreme of the mountain river tier. What right do you have? He clenched his fists, rage boiling beneath the surface. I will make sure you die here today. A cold smile spread across his lips as he stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Zhao Lun greets the three lords. Though arrogant, he did not forget propriety. The three judges outranked him in official status. To show disrespect here would not only insult them, but the empire itself. You may dispense with formalities, Herr Zhao, Kong Cheng'e said with a warm tone. The other judges nodded as well, their expressions noticeably softened. After all, this was the son of the great General Zhao. They would not dare slight him. Bootlickers, Li Weiwei muttered loudly from the crowd. Her voice was not soft. In fact, it carried clearly across the arena. The judges' expressions stiffened slightly, but none dared rebuke her. As the daughter of the left minister, her status was equally formidable. Silence! Nan Menyang's voice exploded like thunder. His aura surged outward, crushing down upon the entire arena. Faces paled instantly. Many found it difficult to even breathe beneath the oppressive force. Kong Cheng'e spoke again. Herr Zhao, you were one of the commanding officers in the military expedition. You personally led the assault team against the Golden Lion Nation. Describe the events in detail. Yes, Zhao Lun's tone became humble, his demeanor respectful. He began recounting the events. The Ninth King and I devised a strategy. Leading our forces, we crossed the raging river. Step by step, he described the events of that day. Surprisingly, he did not distort the truth. He did not fabricate lies to frame Ling Han, because he did not need to. There were more than a dozen witnesses yet to come. They would be the true killing blows. As he spoke, Zhao Lun occasionally mentioned the Ninth King. Each mention was deliberate, a silent mockery. Such a major incident had occurred. And yet the Ninth King had not appeared. She had not spoken a single word in Ling Han's defense. Disappointed you must be. After all, who did not know her status? The 9 kings of the empire, like the empress herself, followed an unwritten rule. They did not marry, and with Ling Han standing so close to her, the empress herself would surely intervene. Zhao Lun knew this well. He had once dared to approach the 9th king himself. Confident in his looks, his talent, and his noble status, he believed no one else in the empire could match her better than he. But after that single attempt, his father had warned him sternly, "Do not even think of it. If you dare harbor such thoughts again, I will personally cut off your head and offer it to the empress as apology." That was how serious it was. Even Zhao Lun was not worthy. And yet Ling Han, a mere ant from a small world, who did he think he was? Finally, Zhao Lun reached the conclusion of his account. Then his tone shifted. During the battle, he said, I wore the treasured armor bestowed upon me by my father. Once fully activated, it granted me defenses comparable to the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, and even the ability to fly. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Even so, it was extremely difficult for me to break through the encirclement and return with information regarding the invasion of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. His gaze sharpened. In the end, it was only because our enemy realized their plan had failed that the Golden Lion Nation was ordered to retreat. Then he raised his hand and pointed directly at Ling Han. I ask you this, Zhao Lun said coldly. If even I struggled to escape such a siege, and all the soldiers under my command were captured. His voice turned sharp, like a blade slicing through silence. How could a mere cultivator at the medium extreme of the mountain river tier possibly escape? The accusation rang out across the arena, heavy, relentless, like a net closing in. And at its center, Ling Han stood alone, facing judgment, facing fate, facing the storm that sought to bury him.